Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. I'm Tim, joined together by JP, and we have quite a few stories to discuss today. So firstly, a big football match last night. Italy has triumphed over England in the Euro Cup final. Then we'll talk about clarification to Malta's new travel ban on non-vaccinated travellers, and clarifying that Maltese people who are already abroad can return home by presenting a negative PCR test. The Prime Minister has confirmed that the European Commission is already criticising Malta over this new travel law. A Turkish mother, is calling out the closure of English language schools and is now demanding a refund for all the thousands of euros that she spent. And the man has been jailed for acting as a policeman and finding maskless tourists. So, Jade, I suppose you watched the game last night.
Absolutely, it was the biggest game of the year, at least for Malta and Maltese fans, as Italy triumphed over England 3-2 on penalties. It was a night of heartbreak and celebrations here in Malta, with people taking to the streets and carcades as the Azzurri defeated England. It was an incredible match, to say the least. England started off strong with Shaw scoring a goal in the first 2 minutes. It seemed like England would keep up the pace, but instead decided to park the bus. And then in the second half, Italy came back strong with Bonucci scoring a goal to tie it up. And then went to extra time, where we didn't see any serious action. And then it went on to the dreaded but beloved penalty shootout. Unfortunately, Marcus Rashford, Saka and Sancho let England down, giving Italy the win on the night, the first Euro win since 1968. Nonetheless, it was an incredible tournament and run for England, who have never made a final appearance at the Euros and were so close to winning their first international major tournament since 1966. But alas, it was heartbreak. English fans now look to Qatar World Cup next year in the hope of hopefully securing that major international title win, but we'll just have to wait and see.
I think they'll have a chance.
They'll have a chance, yes. Football might come home next year.
They just need to be a bit more self-confident and a bit more attacking, and I think they've got it in the bag, perhaps. But you never know.
No.
Well, penalties and England don't always mix together. So, moving on, Shaman Gauci, the public health superintendent, has clarified that Maltese people who are already overseas, as in people who have booked, who travelled from Malta before the new draconian rules were announced, saying that everyone who flies to Malta must be vaccinated. These people can return with a negative PCR test, which is like, okay, good. It's kind of obvious, right? Because the alternative would have been these people would have gone on holiday and then been blocked from returning to their own country, which is against all sorts of international laws that I can think of. I mean, it's a bit good for these people, but it's still very, very minor. I think that this travel ban is extremely draconian, extremely vicious, and extremely discriminatory as well. So, in fact, the Prime Minister has spoke about it and said that this is against this is actually being criticised by the European Union. But just to be clear, what this means at the moment is that if a Maltese person who doesn't live in Malta, and a Maltese expat, lives in another country and has not yet booked his ticket to Malta and has not yet been vaccinated, not necessarily because he doesn't want to,
right,
but because he isn't yet in line to take it, or because
medical reasons,
or for medical reasons, or because, for example, in the UK, right, if you're a 17-year-old, you can't get the vaccine because they're not vaccinating 17-year-olds. So basically, you can't come to Malta. That's it. You're banned. Even though the virus you're not at risk of getting sick or dying of the virus, which is bizarre. I'm trying to understand the science of it. I'm scratching my head. I can't figure it out.
It's health authorities seem to me making these drastic, hasty and decisions that are a bunch of U-turns, and no one really can fully understand exactly what is going on. It seems that, like, internally, health authorities too don't know exactly what's going on or how to deal with the situation, this spike in COVID-19 cases. But Prime Minister Robert Abela, like you had said, confirmed that there was EU criticism over the travel ban, but still insisted that the decision was tough but necessary, saying that it sends a strong message that the vaccine is a solution to the pandemic and to safeguard Malta's economy. He also came out strongly against people who chose not to get vaccinated for non-medical reasons, which I feel is a bit harsh, a bit strange as well. Like, there are many reasons people might not choose to get vaccinated. Like you mentioned, there are people as well who can't get vaccinated at the moment. And really it seems that the government is pushing that, the only solution to this pandemic and for, this travel ban really is to get people to just get vaccinated, no matter what. And that kind of raises a number of ethical issues, obviously, saying that basically people really need to get vaccinated. And it hasn't been received well by the European Commission as well, who've criticized it quite heavily.
So the Prime Minister said something very worrying yesterday, I think, which almost sounded like a veiled threat. He said that it's unacceptable for that some people, like you said, haven't got vaccinated yet, out of choice, not out of medical reasons, and he urged employers to convince their staff to get vaccinated. What does that mean? Like, he's encouraging employers in the nation to go up to their employees and tell them, like, listen, have you got the vaccine yet? What does that imply? Does that imply that if they still refuse to take it, even though their employer is asking it, they will lose their jobs? That does seem what the Prime Minister is suggesting, and that's extremely brutal. And if this starts happening, then we're down on quite an ugly path.
I mean, on a similar note, the Association of Catering Establishments also emphasized that and urged its members to get its employees vaccinated as well. So it's not just Prime Minister speaking in favor of this.
So there's another restriction which hasn't been spoken about as much as this travel ban, but it's also quite a big one, is the closure of English language schools. So Malta closed English language schools because some students got infected, quite a lot of students got infected by the virus, but they didn't get infected while at school, they got infected apparently while out, and yet the schools have to bear the brunt and have to close as a result. Anyway, so Lovin Malta spoke to a mother, Turkish mother of 2 children who are studying at one of these schools, and she's basically asking for a refund. She said she spent €12,000 both on education for her 2 children, for an 8-week course plus private lessons, as well as accommodation. And now she's saying, what about my money? Who's going to pay me back? And I paid for 8 weeks, and I'm going to get 3 weeks instead. And her landlord's already telling her, no, I'm sorry, no can do, because the policy of Airbnb says that if the government changes its COVID laws, like as in an automatic refund doesn't apply, therefore you're not getting it back. And there were some people who were criticizing her with this, saying, you shouldn't have come to Malta in the first place, you don't travel during a pandemic, sure. But let's not forget that the government was not just calling for these people to come over, they were literally going out of the way to incentivize them. So with campaigns and taxpayer money spent on marketing, a lot. Vouchers. So
vouchers aimed specifically at English students.
Yeah, exactly, like all these €200 vouchers people are speaking about. So it's really unfair to blame people like that. The government really went out of its way using our money to attract these people over. And now these people are being blamed for actually coming over. Yeah. I think it's really unfair, and I'm sure that there are going to be other people like this who are going to demand a refund. I think and I'm not sure exactly whether the school should pay it or if the government should pay it.
But the government should pay it. I mean, if you think about it, even Feltham, the Federation of English Language Schools here in Malta, said it was a lack of government enforcement that resulted in this spike of cases, not the fact that English schools went out of their way to, adhere to these strict measures and these protocols. It was the fact that, and according to them, it was lack of government reinforcement that led to this, and them having to pay the ultimate price of closing down.
Yep.
And moving on to our last story now, concerning a curious case of a man who has been jailed for pretending to be a policeman and fining maskless tourists around Malta. 38-year-old John Charles Seabrook, who was born in the UK but lived in Sanglia, was sentenced to 1.5 years in jail after pleading guilty to, and this is quite strange, pretending to be a policeman and charging maskless tourists 50 euros and threatening to arrest those who refuse to comply. As you remember, a couple of months ago, you know, if you weren't wearing your, or not even a couple of months ago, very recently, if you weren't wearing your face mask in Malta, in public, you could be charged 50 euros. This man saw an opportunity to make some money off it, pretend to be a policeman and go around charging maskless tourists the 50 euro fine and making a small profit of it. Obviously, he was breaking the law in that case and has been sentenced to 1.5 years in jail for deceptively profiting from tourists and trying to charge a fifth one between, and profiting off 4 tourists and trying to charge the 5th one between Thursday and Saturday. What do you think?
I think you should be a bit skeptical now when somebody comes up to you and asks, you know, and fines you for not wearing a mask. On a separate note, I think it's also quite funny that this man was jailed for 1.5 years for doing this, whereas recently the architects who were found guilty of literal murder of a woman just got a community sentence. So again, I wonder what the court logic is over there. And that's all for us today. Make sure you follow lovinmalta.com for all the latest updates and stories about what's happening on the island. And until we meet again, have a day full of loving.